Welcome to the Tech Ascent podcast, the show where we dive into the trends, strategies, and success stories that are shaping the tech landscape as we know it today. I'm your host, Oliver Klingane. I'm also the founder of Ascension, the premier business development partner within tech. And today, I'm joined by Aaron McReynolds, the co-founder and CEO of Alysio AI. Aaron, welcome to the show. Would you mind giving the audience a little introduction about yourself and what the mission is behind Alysio?
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, great to be on. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, Aaron McReynolds, co-founder, CEO. Give you a little introduction on myself. So yeah, I come from a 10-year background in B2B SaaS sales. Alysio is a sales performance management platform. I started my career at Goldman Sachs in sales, and then made my way over to the tech world about 10 years ago. So that's kind of been my background. Sold at Qualtrics, Okta, and Lacework. And then, yeah, we started Alysio January 2023, primarily focusing on helping to drive sales rep performance, and think of us as Strava for your sales team. So leaderboards, competitions, real-time rewards, recognition, and kind of ultimate ROI we try and drive is increase in productivity. And yeah, that's what we're about.
Awesome. No, that's super interesting. And it sounds like you've got a very interesting background as well. Start off at Goldman Sachs. How did you navigate from starting at Goldman Sachs to creating your own platform, kind of starting your own business? What gap did you see and what made you kind of want to pursue that passion?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, like I mentioned, started in sales at Goldman, primarily supporting the institutional sales team there. Was introduced to the tech world by a good friend. I joined Qualtrics in 2016, and yeah, like I said, sold for a number of years. Had the opportunity to sell, survey software at Qualtrics, security with Okta and Lacework. And really the gap and the pain comes from the Qualtrics days. We had seven or eight different platforms that we lived in as a sales rep. Data was kind of all over the place. And management just looked at that process and said, hey, we can't answer a really simple question. And that question is, how do you know you've had a great day in sales? Sounds simple on the surface, but when you dive into it, it's pretty hard to judge. Like, is 60 calls a day a good day? Is closing two deals a good day? And so we benchmarked it at Qualtrics, lived in an Excel spreadsheet. Every day we would come in, get 10 points. As long as you got your points, you knew you'd had a good day. Manager knew you had a good day, and then obviously started to coach you on the data that was uncovered. And I used that spreadsheet for a number of years, and then, kind of looked at the sales landscape and started asking a number of CRO friends, VP of sales friends, like that very simple question, how do you know you've had a good day? And no one could really answer it. And so that's when we decided to go out and build the platform. So today, still benchmarked on 10 points a day. Think of it like a GPA. We all took different classes. We all had different majors, but at the end of the day, they could standardize it and give you a score out of four. And we're the exact same way. So some days, every day in sales looks different, but that 10 points gives you that good word, standardization every day. And then, obviously trying to drive the productivity, and that's where the gamification element came in. And so, yeah, I'd say it's from a real world pain that I lived for a number of years, both as a rep and as a manager, and saw the opportunity to go and create something that solved that problem. Like I said, that was 2023, and still trying to solve that problem today.
Mhm. Yeah, no, awesome. And you mentioned it there. You've essentially turned it into a game for sales reps. And something that gets thrown around the space a lot right now in marketing and sales is the TikTokification of social media and things like
Mhm.
that. Everybody's shifting from long form content to short form content. Blog posts are getting turned into videos. Whole kind of shift. You saw it early. How is that kind of industry, that shift, how has that helped you? And what sort of kind of trends do you kind of see around that? And what sort of challenges has it brought your company?
Yeah, I think, we've had the opportunity when we first started the platform, it was like very data centric, right? Like that's kind of what we were providing. As time went on, both from customer requests and kind of to your point where things were going, um, especially I think in this era of if you look at the sales reps today, both SDRs, commercial AEs, like a lot more Gen Z influence, we almost started to get those requests of like, hey, how do we gamify this even more? So now we have like trophies and leaderboards. We have streaks that you can go on for hitting those points, and I think it's just part of the general psyche of our users. If that's how they operate in their social media world, it overlaps into their day job. Um, I think everybody wants to be recognized for what they do.
Hmm.
And I think that's often be hard for a manager to be able to say, okay, I've got data in 8 different systems. How do I monitor this enough at a granular perspective to really understand that someone's doing what they should be doing, excelling, exceeding? We automate all of that for you. People want to be recognized for their wins, not just on a quota attainment perspective, but the effort that goes in to get there. Um, I come from an era where there were no participation trophies, right? Like you got a trophy if you were the champion and you won something. But even that part of like the psyche, I think, has changed where it's not against the grain to just recognize effort. For better or for worse, we'll find out. But that's all part of what the platform does is say, you may not be the top closer. You can be the top cold caller or, set the most demos, set the most discovery meetings, want to understand the sales enablement process. Are you onboarding at the right pace? I think retention is a big part of what we do. You try and hire a good sales rep. If they go unnoticed or unappreciated for too long, it's a bad experience for them as an employee. And so I think that all kind of feeds into the way that the platform has been shaped and evolved. Yeah, trying to tap into not like the addictive nature that we all have now, I think, but a little bit of that instant reward, making sure that those pieces are recognized and rewarded at an org level standpoint.
Hmm. No, amazing. And it sounds like the platform, it creates a environment that's competitive in a good way within a team
Hmm.
to kind of climb that leaderboard. Being in the space, being a software platform, you're also in a hyper competitive space. How
Yeah,
do you go
indeed.
about kind of separating yourself from other companies out there that may offer something similar or in kind of the same arena, so to say?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I think I'm a very I'd say brand focused CEO. Like I think about that a lot. I care about the design of the platform, the user experience of the platform, and that all kind of encompassed into, hey, we're 10 people. But every time we talk to potential customers, they think we have like 100 people. Put a lot of effort, early days into creating a brand around Alysio. Um, podcasts, events. uh, we've done competitions within the platform, outside of the platform, and you want people to have a positive affinity to the brand itself, and to try and get our name out there in, yeah, a very crowded space. We saw it as a challenge like the day we started. It's like, how do we go sift through the noise? And I look at some of the incredible partnerships that we've had. We were, I think, like 4 months old, 4 people, and we co-hosted an event with Microsoft,
Hmm.
right? And it's just like that's not normal, but it put us on the map pretty early, and I think that's something that often gets overlooked. And I don't know if it's because we're in Utah and it's a very sales focused community. And look at a lot of these companies in the Bay, for example, where the mindset has always been like product first. If you've got a great product, it will sell. Um, but just because you have a great product, if people don't know about it, they're not going to buy it. And so I think in this space, we've taken the time, we've invested the energy and the resources to create a brand and a story around Alysio that people have an affinity to. And I know it seems trivial, but like even down to, our swag and the branding. Like we were at SaaStr last year and we won an award for the best swag at SaaStr. We wanted people to say, hey, I want an affinity to this brand where I'll wear their hats and I'll wear their t-shirts on the weekend, not just at the conference. And I think that all kind of leads into it, of being able to stand out and be separated I love fashion. It's part of kind of who I am. And, I think about the best brands in that world. And it's like, how do you go stand out and be competitive against the Louis Vuittons of the world, infinite resources? It's you create an affinity to the brand that people attach to, and then that will grow over time. And so I think that's something we've done pretty much since day one, and and it's working.
Amazing. And it sounds like I got to get my hands on some of your swag.
Yeah, it's all sold out right now. I can't even get my hands on any. So,
Sign me up for the next batch. But
no,
with that, we can backtrack. You dropped a lot of gems there. We can backtrack a little bit. You mentioned that one thing, you've built a team of around 10, but people you speak with think you might have a team of 100. How do you go about kind of building such a powerful culture, especially being the co-founder CEO of a startup? How do you go about maintaining people, maintaining the kind of work effort, work rate that you need to succeed?
yeah, I think because we're 10, you wear a lot of hats. And I know every startup says that. Um, we hired a head of product. He runs customer success. And Demo just recognized Alysio as one of the top customer success companies in the demo environment. And that's a one-person team. But it doesn't feel like that to the customer. I think being able to have people with, a small ego but a high work rate is really what shapes the culture. Everyone that is here wants to win. We know how hard it is. And to see a head of product was never in the job description to go run customer success, but that was a need, and he's filled that need and done a phenomenal job in doing that. And I think that's across the board, right? It's like I'm the CEO, but I make cold calls. I'll do sales demos. I sit in product meetings. Like I have to wear a lot of hats as well. And that's just kind of the culture that we have. And I think as well in this day and age, I honestly think like employee count is an ego trip, right? Like it's sexier to say I have 100 people at my startup. I get more of a drive and a kick out of saying, yeah, we're only 10 people, but
Hmm.
we can do so much more. We apply AI to everything we do internally. We always try and find the most efficient way to do something, so that we can operate with 10. And it's one of those reasons why we still have a good chunk of money in the bank, because we've been efficient since day one. Try and be as scrappy as we can, and try and deploy resources where it makes sense. We still take big bets, but being able to say, can one person do the role of three or four, not to burn out, but, to the point of, I'm excited enough about the vision, I care enough about the company that I'm willing to do it, give 110%. I think that is what ticks. And I don't think it stems just from me. I think that's within every single employee that we have, that is their mindset. We interview for that. So it's kind of a prerequisite to coming on board. But we just want people that care about what we're doing, believe in what we're doing, and are willing to give everything, so that, yeah, 10 can feel like 100.
Mm. And it sounds like you're doing just that. And you mentioned it there. It sounds like being at the head of the ship is you got to show people you can get your hands dirty too. So sitting in
Yeah.
a cold meeting, sitting on meetings from the beginning to the end, sounds like you're very involved, which is awesome to see. And you mentioned it there is you leverage AI a lot, which
Mhm.
to your benefit allows you to keep your team small but keep your team efficient. What sort of uses have you kind of incorporated with AI?
Yeah, yeah, good question. I think there's a couple applications for AI. One is at a personal level, right? Like I use ChatGPT for me all day,
Mhm.
all day. But then even from a product standpoint, being willing to invest in tools that are going to make my dev team more efficient, right? And I think we have the luxury of being in this, stage that we're at where we can move quickly. If we had 1,000 people, you can't just go buy a new tool that's going to make all your developers more efficient overnight, but we can do that. So we're always looking, at the forefront of what's attainable, how fast can we move, what resources do we need to be able to do that. And then this era of, really, I would say, understanding the application of AI. I think we live in this microcosm of like all we talk about all day is AI. I step out of our little world, and that's not how the world thinks.
Mm,
You talk to a non-tech company, that's not how they think right now. Um, and so I think, it's a lot of testing and reiteration on what are the processes we have in place? Are they the most efficient? Can we be faster without breaking things too much? You're always going to break things. I think it's a good thing. But being able to just say, how can we be the fastest? How can we be the best? We're working on, pretty big, significant V2 to the platform right now. And you look back 2 years ago, what would have taken us a year to build, and I'm not overstating this, we can now do in a month.
mm,
And that's not a luxury that everybody had a couple years ago. And so we're just trying to stay on the forefront of that, really understand the tools that are out there that can help us move as quickly as possible. And I think that's the mindset of every employee, right? Whether it's on the design front, whether it's on product purely, whether it's in development, on marketing. You want to go to a website redesign, how do we do it as fast as we can do it? And so I just think it's the mindset of our team to always be looking for the biggest potential gains from an efficiency standpoint.
fantastic. And it sounds like what you guys have built, progress just compounds, and especially when it comes to efficiency,
Mhm.
1% every day over a year, it adds up quick.
So adds up quick.
And you shared a perspective there that I really want to dive into. You mentioned in the tech space, we all talk about AI so often, but once you remove yourself from that, it's not the most spoken about thing. And that's
Hmm.
just the way the world works. And I want to tie that back to something you spoke about earlier is you come from an era where participation awards weren't a thing.
Hmm.
With your platform, going to sales executives that they've been in the industry for a long time, they might not understand the gamification of things. How do you go about educating them about the value of your platform, of what the benefits are, things like that? Because it's something we see a lot of. People have great products, they have great services, great platforms, but they can't sell it. How do you go about
Yeah.
kind of showcasing the value and educating prospects?
Yeah. I think I have the luxury of having been in sales for 10 years, um, trained by some of the best sales teams, I believe, in the world. I always think the superpower of a salesperson is not to actually sell, right? It's to listen. And if I'm talking to a CRO that's been in the industry for 30 years and gamification doesn't resonate, I'm not going to sell our platform on the gamification. I'll sell them on the data side of the platform and the ROI of an increase in productivity that leads to revenue attainment. Now, the gamification is a byproduct of that, and that's how we get there. And then I just say, hey, you're not the end user of the platform. Your Gen Z SDRs might be, and this is what they gravitate towards. And so I think being able to, listen first, understand, digest. And I had a great sales leader once that, used this analogy of, when I first started to sell, and I think most people are this way, is, you get an element of feedback and you say, okay, and you move on to the next question that you had prepared or something you need to answer. And he said, look, take it back another layer and another layer and another layer. And they give you a nugget, delve deeper into why they said that thing, question why, and then being able to, on your feet, be able to spin the narrative of what your product does to be able to solve that why, and the response that they give you to that question. And so I think, I always feel fortunate that I've been in sales. I think it helps to be able to think on your feet, speak to the potential buyer. I've been a buyer of technology. I know how I like to be sold. But I think far too often salespeople, um, they know what they want to sell, they know the value prop, they know the messaging that sits in a template somewhere, and they stick to it, like very rigid in their sales process. And I've just never really been that way. Like I feel like it's important to hear and understand the individual that you're selling to. And I've shared this story before. I was buying a Volkswagen Golf. I knew the color I wanted. I knew the cloth interior that I wanted. I knew all the specs, probably better than the salesperson. I found one online. I went to the dealership, and I was like, "Hey, this is the Golf I want. I know you have it. He's like, let's go for a test drive." And he's like selling me on all these features and functionalities of the car. And I was like, I know all this. Just let me go drive the car. Like, I just want to go drive it on my own. Ended up walking away from that dealer, went to one a couple miles up the road. I was like, hey, you got this black Golf. He threw me the keys. He's like, yeah, I'll see you in 20. I was like, I don't need to. And I bought it.
Mm,
Right. And I think, being able to understand if that first salesperson, when I walk in and I tell them the exact spec and what I'm looking for, and I already know you have it, like, I'm ready to buy it. Like, just let me go buy it. You don't have to try and sell me on it. And he didn't understand my needs and my pain points as a salesperson, and the second person did. Right?
mm,
If I was walking in and being like, "Do you have a car with four seats?" Then he can go and try and sell me. But I didn't need that, and it completely put me off. And so I always go back to that myself when I'm trying to sell and be like, "Okay, what are the needs? Like, is this person come to the website? They know exactly what we do. They want to buy it. It's like, okay, here's an order form." On the other end, if gamification is an entirely new concept, like walk them through the value and teach them and educate them. So I think it's just being able to be receptive and aware of who you're selling to every time and not being too rigid.
mm. Masterclass right there. For all the sales reps out there,
Thanks.
that's a masterclass. And so, with that, a lot of companies struggle when they're first starting up. Sales is going to be their biggest bottleneck.
Mhm.
Being the co-founder CEO, getting your company off the ground, what was your biggest bottleneck? What was the biggest challenge you had to overcome?
Yeah, and from a personal standpoint, I'm not technical, right? Like the development world was completely new to me. We were fortunate enough we hired a head of product. Um, before we hired our engineers because I can speak to the head of product and they can translate to the developers. And I would say over the last 2 years, that's something that I've tried to personally work on where I can sit in the room with the developers and at least be in the conversation, right? And add value to the conversation. I couldn't do that on day one. If they said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I want to use this tool, like, okay, you know better than I do. Now it's like I can come to them with tools that I found or ways to be more efficient. And I think one, I hope they appreciate that. But I would say that was my biggest bottleneck was like that fear of not being able to speak the same language. And it is a different language. And so yeah, I've had to spend a lot of time, you know, upskilling myself in that department and being able to interview developers and being able to find potential hires um, and understand the languages that they can code in and where their skill sets lie. Um, and for anyone who's not of like a developer background, like it can be an ominous task. But yeah, I would say that was the biggest bottleneck and probably set us back more than it needed to because I lacked in that area. And so, as we're going out and building this V2 of the platform, it's like I want to be a value add. I want to be able to speak that language. I want to be able to find the recruits that fit the right profile and not be in the dark on that side of the business.
It sounds like growth and education has been a real priority for you since starting on day
Of course,
one.
yeah.
If you could rewind a little bit, tell yourself that the day you're starting Alysio, one thing, what would that one thing be?
I would say be patient. Like it's not a virtue that I have, and I know that. Um, Being able to be patient with the process. Like I think every founder wants to, be bigger than they are, be further along than they are. Um, but I'd really just tell myself like be patient with the process. Like learn, develop over time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But that's the world that we live in. It is a sprint in many many cases. But the actual game that we play is a marathon, and you got to be prepared for that. And to just be able to step away and take a breath and be patient with myself, be patient with the employees, be patient with the product, be patient with customers. Something I'm obviously still working on. But yeah, I would tell myself, be patient.
Great piece of advice. Now, instead of looking back, let's look forward. Let's say
Mhm.
it's January 24th, day of recording, 2026. What would you like to see happen to Alysio?
Yeah, I'm pretty ambitious. Yeah, there's a milestone I have in my head of where I want the company to be, obviously revenue wise, things that I want to have achieved by then. But I think, I'm being honest here. I don't think we fully grasp how quickly businesses are going to be able to move, with moving into this era of AI and the actual application of AI. And if you'd have asked me 2 years ago to say where we'd be in 2 years, I think you have a frame of reference of how other companies have moved historically in a 2-year window. But now I genuinely don't think we understand how much we can go and accomplish, in maybe a year or 2 years, 3 years. And it's like it's compounding so quickly. Even use case, we're working on this MVP of V2. And if we'd have done this 2 years ago when we started, that's okay, here's the milestone we need to hit in a year. And now it's like a month and a half. And that's just the mindset. It's like it's achievable. We can do it. And so yeah, I'd say there's a little bit of ambiguity of where we can get. We've set lofty goals kind of based on like a pre-assumption of how fast we can move. But yeah, it's a significant revenue number we want to be at. So I'll check back in with you then.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And the sky's the limit based on kind of like you said, the if you ask yourself 2 years ago, where'd you be today? You guys have made insane progress, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. So
I
let's keep
appreciate
it
it.
going. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, that's all I got for you today. I really appreciate you coming on the show, dropping some gems, dropping a sales masterclass. I can't thank you enough.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Oliver.